Hi, I'm Nevin, one of the co-founders of Reserve. This video introduces Reserve overall. We're going to tell you about the main problems with money that we're trying to solve, how we're trying to solve them, the progress we've made so far, and how you can use what we've already built and help us build what's next. It's longer than a normal intro video because we want you to really get it. If you already kind of know what Reserve is basically doing but don't understand why or how we're doing it, this video will get you to the next level. Reserve is basically a new approach to currency. If it were to fully succeed, it would be used by the majority of people in the world. Like every person, business, bank, and government would be able to make every payment, fill every savings account, and make every loan using this new approach to money. And it's meant for everybody. And it's meant for everybody because we all have the same problem, which is inflation. The prices go up for almost everybody in almost every country. And this happens every year, every decade, every century. The prices just keep going up. And sometimes it happens slowly, sometimes it happens alarmingly fast, and sometimes, like right now in many places, the prices go up medium fast, and that still really adds up over time. The International Monetary Fund has consumer price data going back to 1960 for a lot of countries, and that's what we're showing here on this chart. The lines that go off the top of the chart are countries where prices have gone up more than 20x. But even in the US, prices have gone up 8x in that time. That means that if your family saved any money in US dollars since 1960, you can only buy 1/8 as much now as you could then, an 87% loss in purchasing power. Why? Why do the prices always go up? The prices always go up because we always print money. Or more specifically, we always print money faster than our economies can handle it. Economists have known for a long time that overprinting money leads to price inflation. Here's Milton Friedman showing the relationship back in 1978.
I just want to settle for once and for all the point that inflation is a monetary phenomenon. That proposition has been documented over and over again. We have evidence for the United States for over 100 years, for Great Britain for 200 years, for Sweden for 200 years. That chart is for the United States, and it covers the 13 years from 1964 through 1976. And one of those charts is the quantity of money per unit of output, and the other line is a consumer price index.
Let's decode what he's saying here. The green line is money being printed, and the red line is prices. So you can see that as more money is printed, prices go up proportionally. Prices are going up because the dollar is being diluted, and that reduces its value. The green line is not just showing the amount of money in circulation, it's actually showing the money supply divided by the size of the economy. That's why he said quantity of money per unit of output. What this means is that if the money supply were growing at the same rate as the economy, for example, if they were each growing at 2% per year, that green line actually would have been flat. To the extent that it's steeper than flat, that's because we're printing money faster than the economy is growing. So this shows that in the 70s, we were printing money quite quickly relative to economic growth, and inflation was moving at the same quick pace as well.
But you may say that's only for the United States. But what about other countries? The next slide is for Germany for the same period. And again, you will see the same story. Well, the United States and Germany are very similar countries. What about another country? That's for Japan, and you will notice that Japan experienced a much greater price rise than either the United States or Germany did. Let's have the next chart, which is for Great Britain. You can see each one of these has a little bit more inflation than the preceding one, but each one of them, you again have the same relationship in every case between the quantity of money and prices. Or what explains the next chart for Brazil? Now that's an inflation that's really an inflation. That's none of these baby inflations we've been playing with. Of course, there are still better ones in Argentina and Chile, but we don't have a big enough room.
So why does printing more money make money less valuable. When people have more money, they're willing to spend more. They actually feel like things are worth more. Johnny Harris puts this really clearly in his video on inflation.
Inflation is when there is more money in the economy than stuff to spend it on. But if you're like me, the simplest definition never does it for you. So let's try this. Imagine a village that has one market where people buy all of their stuff, their food, their clothes. But one day the government shows up because they're worried about the economy of this village. So they tell the people that if they want to take out a loan, they're going to make sure that the banks will not charge them a high interest rate. They want to encourage the people to take out loans and spend money. Oh, and they also drop off a giant pile of cash for everyone in the village. And everyone in the village is like, sweet, I'm feeling pretty rich. Villagers now are going to their market and they're buying way more stuff. Many of them have been eyeing the fancy electric bike in the market that before they couldn't justify, but now they totally can because they have all this new money. The store owner's like, sweet, this is great for business, but he's running out of bikes. In fact, he's running out of everything because now all of these people have extra money and they're buying way more than they used to. The store owner's like, I can't keep up with all this demand. I should raise prices. And that is inflation.
In this case, it didn't work out that badly for the villagers. Prices went up, but they had all that free money to make up for it. The thing is, it doesn't usually work that way. We don't usually print money and hand it all out perfectly evenly to everybody. We often spend it in concentrated ways. For example, we might print a bunch of money and then use that to bail out a particular bank. Or we might print a bunch of money and use that to pay back lenders that we borrowed from in order to fund a war. Ray Dalio just wrote a great book about when and why we do this with our world reserve currencies.
As I studied the 10 most powerful empires over the last 500 years and the last 3 reserve currencies, it took me through the rise and decline of the Dutch Empire and the guilder, the British Empire and the pound, the rise and early decline in the United States Empire and the dollar, and the decline and rise of the Chinese Empire and its currencies. Breaking the link to gold allowed the U.S. to continue spending more than it earned, simply by printing more paper dollars. Since there was an increase in the number of dollars without an increase in the country's wealth, the value of each dollar fell. As these new dollars entered the market, without a corresponding increase in productivity, they went to buy lots of stocks, gold, and commodities, and hence caused their prices to rise. As I studied more history, I saw that the exact same thing happened many, many times before. I saw that since the beginning of time, when governments spent much more than they took in taxes, and conditions got bad, they ran out of money and they needed more. So they printed more, a lot more, which made its value fall and made the prices of most everything, including stocks, gold, and commodities, rise. That's when I first learned the principle that when central banks print a lot of money to relieve a crisis, buy stocks, gold, and commodities, because their value will rise and the value of paper money will fall. This printing of money is also what happened in 2008 to relieve the mortgage-driven debt crisis, and in 2020 to relieve the pandemic-driven economic crisis, and it almost certainly will happen in the future. When debts become very large and there is an economic downturn, and the empire can no longer borrow the money necessary to repay its debts, the financial bubble bursts. This creates great domestic hardships and forces the country to choose between defaulting on its debts or printing a lot of new money. It always chooses to print a lot of new money, at first gradually and eventually massively. That devalues the currency and raises inflation. Of the roughly 750 currencies that existed since 1700, less than 20% now exist, and all of them have been devalued. For the Dutch, this happened after their defeat in the Fourth Anglo-Dutch War, when they weren't able to repay the massive debts they built up during it. This led to a run on the Bank of Amsterdam and a desperate sell-off, forcing massive money printing, which devalued the currency and the empire into irrelevance. For the British, this happened after World War II, when despite their victory, they could not repay the massive debts they borrowed to fund their war effort. This led to a series of money printing, devaluations, and sell-offs in the British pound, as the US and the dollar emerged dominant and created a new world order. At the time of this recording, the United States hasn't yet reached this point. While it has massive debt, spends more than it earns, and funds this deficit with more borrowing and printing huge amounts of new money, the big sell-off in dollars and dollar debt hasn't yet begun.
The point Dalio is making here is that we don't only need to worry about the constant slow inflation of the dollar, we need to worry about potential massive devaluations, just like we saw with the past two reserve currencies at the end of their reign. I don't really know on what timescale this could play out, but I take it seriously, and I hope that the reserve protocol can be used to create a true alternative to fiat money that doesn't have this problem. Let's review. Pretty much all fiat currencies are devaluing all the time. We're printing money faster than our economies are growing, and that extra money is being spent and driving up prices, thus devaluing the currencies themselves. This is happening a little bit all the time, and sometimes happens on a massive scale, even with world reserve currencies. Dalio, Harris, and Friedman all go into more detail in their full videos, which we've linked in the description for you to watch later, but you get the idea. What this means is when you put in hard work and you get your paycheck, if you don't spend it all right away, the amount that you can purchase back from the world is just always going down. But what if it wasn't? What if that's not how money worked? What if there was a way where your purchasing power just stayed the same? That would mean that you could do some work and earn $1,000, and 50 years later, that same $1,000 could purchase exactly the same amount as it could today. That's fundamentally what we're trying to offer. We're trying to offer that type of stability to everybody worldwide indefinitely. Hi, you're meeting the Reserve Project. As of this video, the project has two main parts: a protocol for creating asset-backed tokens, and also a fintech app for using those tokens as money. The fintech app is a normal centralized company, whereas the protocol operates mostly outside of the founding team's control. We started in the San Francisco Bay Area, and now we are everywhere and anywhere, with lots of dinners and drinks, and sometimes week-long work sprints and so on. Recently, we're starting to have clusters of people in Buenos Aires, Bogota, Mexico City, and San Francisco. For the past 4 years, we've been planning how to make currencies that don't inflate, and rolling out several initial pieces to get us there. But I haven't yet addressed the big question here. Can you actually create a currency that doesn't inflate, that doesn't have this problem of price inflation? And we think that the answer is maybe yes. Here's why. So the thing is, in a sense, wealthy people have already solved this problem. What I mean by that is that wealthy people don't keep their money in currency. They know that even the US dollar is losing value all the time. And so they keep their money in very diversified baskets of assets, like stocks, bonds, gold, and real estate. And they only convert enough money into their local currencies to cover short-term expenses or to carry out transactions. So someone might sell some stock for US dollars to go buy a house, for example. What we basically propose is to take the same assets that wealthy people already use to protect their wealth and aggregate those assets all together and then make a currency directly out of them, like an asset-backed currency, a currency that is backed by that diversified basket of assets directly, one-to-one. This way, you can just store your wealth, just like wealthy people already do, using that currency backed by a basket of assets. And you can also go right ahead and spend portions of that wealth directly, because the currency is just a token. And you don't need to ever trade out into any local fiat currency. An asset-backed currency built on the Reserve Protocol is called an RToken, and it runs on smart contracts on the Ethereum blockchain. anybody can mint an RToken, which is a little bit wild. It's unlike a fiat currency where only the central bank can sort of control the creation of money. And to take that even further, you don't even need to interact with any person or business to mint one. It's all a permissionless thing that you can just do on the blockchain. But there is a catch. There's a reason why this is okay, which is that to mint an RToken, you have to deposit the entire basket of assets that backs it one-to-one. And so that means that every RToken that gets minted is backed by the appropriate basket of assets. And it also means that nobody can just create them for free. Likewise, anybody can redeem RTokens for the assets in their baskets. And you can do that 24/7 with no permission, just by sending a transaction to the smart contract. RTokens also have some other fancy features, like extra collateralization, in case any of the collateral assets encounters a technical problem, and also rules for how their baskets and other parameters can be updated. But those are pretty complicated, so I'm not going to go into it now. You can check out some of our longer videos and written documentation if you want to go deeper and understand that. We ultimately envision these currencies being backed by highly diverse baskets of tokenized assets. Again, just like how wealthy people today already diversify their holdings. Not many financial assets are tokenized yet, but we think that they will be. For example, stocks, bonds, real estate. Gold, interestingly, already is, by two different custodians. So that's one example of the sort of tokenization we're talking about. A funny thing about the Reserve Protocol is that the team that invented it and that has developed it has never created a currency with it. And we don't intend to. And the thing is, we don't need to, because anybody can do that. And the whole point is to allow anyone and everybody to try their hand at doing so. So just like how you can go deploy a smart contract in Ethereum, or you can deploy a new trading pair on Uniswap, and in those cases you don't need anybody's permission, nobody even has to know that it's you doing it, you can also go and deploy a new currency on Reserve without our permission. And also, you can get paid to do that, because currencies on Reserve can generate revenue. And as the creator, you can choose to take a cut if you want to. Since not a lot has been tokenized yet, early RTokens will look really different from how we think RTokens will look 10 years from now. Today, you can mix and match anything in DeFi, and that can get pretty interesting, but it will usually still leave you depending on the US dollar at the end of the day, because most of what's interesting in DeFi is interesting derivatives on top of US dollar stablecoins. That's why the tokenization of everything else is so important to the Reserve project in the long term. Let's say that this all works, and years from now, we have asset-backed currencies governed by functional DAOs and designed not to devalue the way that fiat currencies do. What then? Can we put these asset-backed currencies in our bank accounts? Probably not, at least not for a long time. And that is why we've also built RPay, which is a stablecoin platform where you can hold and spend RTokens. RPay became a popular way to save and spend in US dollars in Venezuela during their recent battle with hyperinflation. Luckily, their inflation rate has calmed down, but it's still pretty significant, and RPay is still widely used. At this point, there's about 27,000 merchants that accept payments with RPay, and users do about $300 million worth of transactions per month as of the making of this video. The thing is, most people around the world just use stablecoins in order to invest in other cryptocurrencies. But RPay users are getting their paychecks in stablecoins. They're saving to buy cars and paying their rent and buying their groceries and sending money to their families. We also see businesses using it to save their working capital in dollars and to move their money in and out of foreign bank accounts. This is the kind of crypto usage that we're excited about.
Acá nosotros no tenemos como tal una moneda estable, entonces ¿qué necesitamos? Siempre estar convirtiendo nuestros bolívares en una divisa extranjera o en una criptomoneda para que de esa manera pierda menos su valor. Y eso ha sido lo que Reserve nos ha facilitado mucho. Lo podemos convertir en dólares, que de esa manera los podemos luego de que son dólares, aunque parezca incoherente, los volvemos a transformar en bolívares para cancelar. Esa es una realidad pues que se vive en este país.
From the very start, from the very beginning, RPay was actually in looking to solve a problem for the people that their currency fell for them, and that their currency was devaluating every day, and they didn't have any other choice. And with stable currencies, they were able to do it. And with a tool that allowed them to hold and spend it, they were able to do it and give them hope that a new reality, a different reality could start with them.
Pocas personas que tienen acceso a bancos internacionales y son los que tienen quizás esas cuentas accesibles para hacer transacciones a través de cel o algunas transferencias, pero los que no tienen, y acá en Venezuela es mucha la mayoría de las personas que no la tienen, pues hoy en día a través del RTokens es una buena opción de servicio para ese tipo de pago.
En un principio, nosotros cuando recibíamos los pagos en bolívares, el dinero se nos diluía en las manos. Lo que teníamos hoy, ya mañana valía la mitad. Teníamos la mitad del poder adquisitivo y así no podíamos seguir ahorrando porque no íbamos a poder concretar nada. Un día llegamos a la casa de un amigo, le comentamos lo que queríamos hacer, lo que nos estaba pasando con los ahorros, y nos dice, pero ustedes no usan Reserve. Nosotros Reserve. Nos muestra la aplicación y allí comenzamos. Comenzamos a cada pago que nos caía, que se diluía en las manos, que se nos devaluaban los bolívares, bueno, íbamos guardando en Reserve y en Reserve no se devaluaba.
To kind of think about the context here, imagine paying high fees to send money to your mom. Or imagine that your currency is devaluing and you can't really do anything about it. It's kind of weird. We live in this world where it is possible to, click once and make a free video call to somebody anywhere in the world, but to send a few dollars to a family member living in some other country is often a daunting process and it's often expensive. Why is that, right? It just seems like the electronics should allow us to do it. The internet should allow us to do it. What is the problem?
Many of the financial regulations that exist today were from 20, 30, 40 years ago and more, creating a lot of bureaucracy in the process, adding a lot of different intermediaries on the process to make a financial transaction, increasing costs, and creating barriers that divide and exclude. And usually are the most vulnerable ones, or the ones unlucky enough to have been born in another part of the world, to be left out and to widen these inequalities.
The RPay team isn't just focused on stability. They really want to provide all sorts of financial services to people everywhere in the world.
Las oportunidades que tenemos con estas nuevas tecnologías son nuevas herramientas y debemos verlas, los emprendedores, los innovadores, como nuevas herramientas para solucionar problemas de una manera más conveniente que se hacía anteriormente.
But rolling out RPay is not easy, and as of 2023, it's hit some roadblocks. The people in Venezuela you just heard testimonials from talked about converting between dollars and bolivars, but we've actually been forced to suspend that functionality for now. The reasons here are nuanced, but one big problem is bad actors in the crypto world. After the Terra stablecoin collapse and the FTX exchange collapse, which both caused billions of dollars in losses for their users, banks in the US and elsewhere are even more wary to work with crypto companies. And in Venezuela, the head of the crypto regulatory agency was involved in a multi-billion-dollar corruption scandal and sent to jail, which has led to the suspension of all of the crypto exchanges in the country and the reorganization of the regulator itself, and just a lot of negative crypto sentiment overall. RPay requires cooperation with local governments and local banks in order to operate, and it's hard to blame either of those for being skeptical of crypto, given how many scandals we've been through in the past 2 years. On the positive side, RPay recently received a license from OFAC, which is the Office of Foreign Asset Control within the United States Department of the Treasury. This license reduces the sanctions compliance uncertainty that comes from operating in Venezuela. Economic sanctions in the US placed on Venezuela make it very difficult for most businesses to exist and serve customers there. So this license is meaningful to me in 2 ways. First, it's a sign that US government agencies are willing to support financial services based on crypto when those services are providing real value. And we carefully explained the humanitarian value of RPay to OFAC, and I'm pretty sure it was relevant to their decision to offer a license. Second, it's a demonstration of the RPay team's willingness to work through the challenges in bringing these services to those who are often left out of the system. Many fintech companies chose to just cut Venezuelans off in order to reduce the sanctions uncertainty, which, I understand. But the RPay team put in quite a lot of effort to get a license so they could go on serving Venezuelans. I am sure that there will be more barriers like this to overcome along the way, but the RPay team, led by Gabo, whom you just met, is extremely dedicated to broadening access to financial services, whatever that ends up taking. If we can scale RPay globally, everyone around the world will have access to stable currency regardless of their geographic location. And they'll also have, over time, access to more and more basic financial services that they don't necessarily have today. Crypto will actually make that easier for us to offer globally. And if Reserve's approach to asset-backed currency works, then prices just won't go up for people anymore. You'll be able to buy the same amount of food or vacations or school tuition year after year and decade after decade, and so will your grandchildren. It's a bit crazy to imagine. We ask ourselves, is it really possible to change the way that money works, the way that we're talking about? We basically think there's only one way to find out. You can also try these things out if you want to. RPay, for example, is on both iOS and Android, so you can download it and check it out. And you can see a longer list of RTokens on Register. They're not all listed in RPay. Register is kind of like the Etherscan of Reserve, and it can be found at register.app. Reserve rights token holders can participate in governing and insuring RTokens, and they can get paid to do so. If you're interested in that, you can explore the staking reward rates on Register to see if that appeals to you, and if so, you can buy some RSR on your crypto exchange of choice and get started staking. One note about that is that staking rewards are based on the demand for RTokens, so if more people decide to use RTokens over the course of time, there'll be more money to be made from staking. And then also, if you're the inventive type, you can create brand new RTokens yourself. Like I said before, anyone can do that. If you have an idea for an asset-backed currency that can be implemented with existing ERC20 tokens, or by the way, any DeFi positions that can be wrapped to tokenize them, then you can use Register to deploy new RTokens yourself. Depending on how complicated you want to get, you might need to create a new collateral adapter, which can require some technical skill, and you're welcome to come find us on our Discord and talk to us about how to do that. And then also, if you want to work on Reserve in a dedicated way, you have a couple of options. You can apply to join one of the full-time teams working on the project at reserve.org/jobs, or you can apply for a grant to work on a specific project on your own or with a team of yours or a small group at reserve.org/grants.